Good morning, everybody, and welcome back to Coffee with Craig. Well, we talk about all things firearms, firearms policy, politics, culture, media, you name it. We're talking about it right here on Coffee with Craig. So please take a moment, like and share this program so that your friends can join in the conversation. If you're watching us on YouTube, please take a minute, subscribe. If you're watching us on Facebook, make sure that you are following us on Facebook and make sure you hit the notification button also that you can get notifications as soon as this program goes live. Also, if you're listening to us, and for those of you who don't know, if you just want to listen to us, like in your car or something like that, or while you're working out, we're on Apple iTunes, Apple Podcast, we're on Google Podcasts, Spotify, you name it. We have a number of different ways where you can just listen to the audio versions of the program. Just follow the links in the description to this video. Also, want to remind you once again, please take a moment, go to fpcgear.com. That's fpcgear.com. It is a great place to go to find all sorts of pro Second Amendment swag that you can share with your friends and, once again, show your support for the Second Amendment. But here's the cool part. Every dollar that you spend goes right back into the work that we do. So you can support the Second Amendment and you can look good doing it. That's fpcgear.com. All right. I wanted to talk about, once again, I know we like talking about stuff that's in the news, but this is an item that is in the news that I think you all need to hear about. And it's going on in the state of Oregon. Now, a lot of people leave California to go to Oregon because they believe, well, I want to go someplace where, it's at least more right-leaning, at least not as bad as California, someplace that on the West Coast that is actually going to respect my right to keep and bear arms. But one of the things that we are finding is the Californication of gun laws in various states where people are leaving, where people are leaving California and going to those states. One such state is the state of Oregon, where they are seeking to build a West Coast wall of gun control. That's right. I called it the West Coast wall of gun control. You guys have heard that term here before. That's where gun control advocates are trying to take away the rights of folks all along the West Coast, from Washington all the way down to California, and then they're working their way around even to some of the southern border states like Arizona and New Mexico, and believe it or not, yes, even in Texas. So one such piece of legislation has actually been introduced in the state of Oregon. One might think that now that they've introduced, since marijuana is legal there, clearly someone has been smoking something, because one only need to take a few minutes to really kind of listen to what's going on to know that there is something afoul in the state of Oregon.
Tonight, we're learning more about a gun bill set to be introduced in the Oregon legislature. If passed, it would require Oregonians to obtain a permit before buying a gun, limit the amount of ammunition a person could buy, outlaw magazines with a capacity of more than 5 rounds, and create gun locking and storage requirements. Today, we visited a gun store to ask how gun advocates feel about this legislation.
You can't legislate morality, and you can't disarm the good guy. When you do that, you leave it wide open for the bad guy.
A group of Lake Oswego teens came up with the bill following the school shooting in Parkland, Florida. 2 state representatives have submitted it on their behalf.
Okay, so now understand. So let's start from the very beginning. So this is legislation that started because a teenager, someone who does not possess the right to keep and bear arms, someone who, oh, by the way, doesn't have a fully functioning brain, decided to come up with an idea. And the worst part is this idea is the epitome of if we're talking really bad anti-gun stuff, this bill has almost all of it, or at least a significant chunk of it, packed into one idea. Let's check it out real quick. So here's what it does. So the first thing that it does is it bans magazines that hold more than 5 rounds. Now, mind you, the shooter in Parkland, Texas, he used 5-round magazines. And by the way, I don't know how many firearms come with the standard capacity magazines of 5 rounds. In fact, I think most revolvers have more than 5 rounds. But nonetheless, they want to limit it to 5 rounds. Limit ammo purchases to 20 rounds per month. 20 rounds per month. I can't even do. How is anyone supposed to train? How is anyone supposed to be able to do anything resembling any sort of anything? I don't understand exactly what it is that they suppose that an individual is going to be able to do on 20 rounds a month. That makes absolutely, positively no sense whatsoever. Absolutely, positively no sense whatsoever to limit it to 20 rounds per month. I mean, shoot, I go through more than 20 rounds in 10 minutes at the range, and yet you're only supposed to be able to purchase 20 rounds. I mean, yeah, that's right, 20 rounds in an entire month. Insanity. I told you this was insanity. I told you somebody had been smoking something. All right. It says mandate permits for gun purchases. Now, this exists, folks, largely because what their desire is, they want to be able to tell you can't purchase a firearm before you're able to even go purchase it. Or at the very least, they want to try and delay it. And you see this happening a lot, for example, in New Jersey, where people are applying for licenses and basically their licenses are being held their applications are being held in absentia for months, if not years, for absolutely, positively no reason at all. And then they want to be able to do things like they want to do in New York, where they can be able to determine, well, who has a right? I mean, who should have the privilege of possessing a firearm? Not the right to keep and bear arms, but the privilege. They'll probably introduce legislation eventually that, well, they're going to check your social media accounts and see if you said any offensive things that might trigger somebody or might make someone feel like you violated their safe space. Yeah, those are the sorts of ideas that they are proposing, once again, in the state of New York. They also want to mandate background checks for ammunition purchases. That's something that we have now here in the state of California, but they haven't exactly figured out how exactly they're going to implement that. Well, at least supposedly they have. In other words, if you've purchased a firearm and you have a firearm, then they assume that you're okay to purchase ammo. The problem is that unless you have a record of having purchased ammunition, there is really no way for them to do. I mean, that you purchased a firearm, unless there's a record of you purchasing a firearm, there really is no way for them to verify whether or not you should. There's no way for them to do the background check. So how exactly are they going to do that in the state of Oregon? That they have not stated. And you can't use the NICS system, because the NICS system is only good for firearms. So you can't do a background check like you would for a firearm, because once again, without a firearm, the NICS system can only be used when it comes to firearm purchases. And then they want to implement a 14-day waiting period on firearm purchases. 14 days. 14 days. They want you to wait 2 weeks. 2 weeks to be able to purchase a firearm. Now, we already know, because we've already seen, testimony that most background checks actually take less than 5 minutes. Honestly, especially when you go through the federal system, NICS system, at least here in the state of California, they've said the exact same thing. We're talking an overwhelming percentage, probably 80-90%, happen almost, I won't say instantaneously, but within 5-10 minutes. The federal background checks come back, as well as in most of the cases, most of the state ones. So there really is no reason to make an individual wait that long. There's no reason behind it, except that they just want to inconvenience you, and they want to delay your right to or your ability to exercise your right to keep and bear arms. Folks, this is, once again, one of the most egregious measures we've seen. I have not seen even a bill this comprehensive when it comes to gun control, when it comes to taking away civil rights. I haven't seen one this bad in any of the states that I've worked. So folks, the people in Oregon need your help. And the people in Oregon, if you're watching and you're from Oregon, you need to be sharing this information. You need to be letting people know just how stupid and insane this particular measure is. And the idea that you're only going to be limited to 5 rounds, the idea that you're only going to be able to purchase 20 rounds of ammunition. A lot of boxes don't even come in 20 rounds. How are you? I mean, the 22 LR. How are you going to get that? And then on top of it, it's going to increase the cost of ammunition, because if you're like I am, I buy ammunition in bulk. Why do I buy it in bulk? Because it's cheaper. Most of the times when I buy it 1,000 rounds at a time. Why? Because it's more inexpensive. Because you retards keep pushing up. I'm talking about you anti-gun folks. Keep doing things that push up the cost. So no, this bill is this bill has got to be stopped. Now, the good thing with Oregon, as opposed to California, is at least in Oregon, the percentage of freedom-loving Americans that live in Oregon is a higher percentage. May not be more in numbers, but there's a higher percentage in the state of Oregon. So we actually have a shot to kill this legislation. But folks, we're going to need your help. We're going to need you guys to get engaged in this fight. How you do that? You go to fightsb501.com. That's fightsb501.com. Send your emails. Give them a call. Let them know that this bill needs to die, that they need not be using ideas that come from high schoolers in their legislation. Folks, there's a reason why you have to wait until you're 18 in order to be able to vote, because that's when you're considered a legal adult. Although in many cases they now want to make it so that you have to be at least 21 in order to purchase a firearm, which then begs the question, what other civil rights will they take away? But that's a whole nother story. It's a whole nother coffee discussion to talk about. But ultimately, I don't really think that we ought to be allowing children to make public policy, because if we had children making public policy, well, then maybe some of y'all parents would be banned. I don't know. Just saying. Anyway, folks, that's going to be it for today's Coffee with Craig. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you so much for telling your friends about the work that we're doing here, for getting them involved in this fight and telling them we are the Firearms Policy Coalition. We are the home in the fight for civil rights. Got to use them or you're going to lose them. You guys take care.
If you like our videos, follow, subscribe, like, and share.